Hi, I'm Claire and today's video is going to be my December perfume tray. I'm going to pick 10 fragrances from my collection for me to choose from during December, and I'm also going to just review the fragrances that I ended up wearing the most during November. If you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire Smith. I make videos all about perfume, perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some straight perfume reviews and also fun perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing, and please also like this video if you do end up enjoying this kind of content. So if you are a returning subscriber, then thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate you, and I love having a chat with you all in the comments. I know so many people now and it's so nice. So thank you so much for that. So my most worn fragrance during November was actually a tie between these two fragrances. I wore both of these 4 times each. And the first one is Jardin's Sandalwood Temple, which is just a fragrance I always want to reach for. A signature fragrance for me, I think, this one. So that was 4 times. And also 4 times was Angel Muse by Mugler. And I think this one really reflects the fact that the weather got a lot colder towards the end of the month. And when it gets colder, I want really cozy, enveloping fragrances. So those 2 were 4 times each. But I did wear everything off my tray at least once, and I did wear quite a few of them 2 or 3 times. But I also ended up wearing a couple of fragrances that weren't on my fragrance tray. And primarily the one that I reached for the most, I think I wore this 3 times, was Angel by Mugler. I think I was just really in the mood for Angel after wearing Angel Muse for a couple of days. And with that super cold snap, that was really an opportunity for me to wear Angel, because I don't really wear it unless it's really, really cold. So those were really my most worn fragrances during November. So for December, I just really want some really opulent picks. I want something chocolatey. I want something that I can wear when I'm going out, because I've got a couple of social events coming up. I've got my work Christmas party. But I also just want some deep dark roses. I want something mysterious. I want some leathers, and I want some spices. So what am I going to pick for December? So my first choice for December is going to be my most recent purchase, and this fragrance has been on my wish list for over a year and I finally bought it. So this one is Amouage's Lilac Love. This was a really well thought out purchase because I didn't want to pay retail for this. I bought it secondhand, and as soon as I saw it, I pounced because I had been wanting it for so long. So this fragrance, I bought the older formulation, so they've put it in a different bottle now, and I believe they've reformulated it. But I bought the old one because that's the fragrance that I have actually tested, and I didn't want to chance a new formulation that I haven't tried. So this one, it always just makes me think of being actually in a lilac flower. It just feels very rich, very heady, and very cocooning. And it makes me think of being in a lilac flower, but also being covered in a white powdery chocolate. It just has this powdery chocolatiness that's addictive. It just is very indulgent. And I think that really suits now. Even though this could be a spring fragrance, I think just the opulence of this fragrance is really the mood that I want for December. And I've worn this one out once already. I went out to dinner with some friends a couple of weeks ago, and I wore this fragrance, and I just felt like $1 million. I just felt like this one was everything that I was wanting, everything that was missing in my collection. And I just feel like this was a really great purchase, and I'm going to love this fragrance until its departure from my life when I finish the bottle. I really can't see this one ever leaving my collection. So that's Lilac Love by Amouage. So my second choice is another fragrance that really makes me think of chocolate, even though chocolate isn't actually listed in this fragrance. And I think it's the coffee here that makes it have a chocolatey vibe. But this one's called Intense Cafe, and it's by Montale. This one was really very popular a few years ago on YouTube, and it's kind of faded from the consciousness of YouTube, as fragrances that are super hyped tend to do. But I really still think this one just has a place in the Christmas celebration. It's just a joyous party kind of fragrance. It says I'm here. It's very loud. It's very in your face, and it's just one of those that every time I wear it, somebody will ask me, "Oh, that's delicious. What is it?" They just really want to know. I remember last time, in a very unglamorous setting, I was moving a fridge at work. I work in a lab, and we were switching fridges over in this lab, and I was helping someone to lift this fridge or to, push it along the floor. And obviously you're quite close to someone at that point. So this person said to me, "That's delicious. What is that?" And I brought the bottle in, they tried it, they loved it. They were trying to find something that was, a similar kind of vibe to this, but at a cheaper price point. And I just totally see why. It's just a very lovable, very easy to like. very sweet, very indulgent feeling fragrance. And that is what gets you compliments, that kind of sweet fragrance. So this one, I just think it's very now. It's just that kind of really punchy rose vanilla musk with that kind of chocolatey cocoa-y feel of the coffee in this fragrance. Just delicious and perfect for the party season of December. So that's Intense Cafe by Montale. So next I'm going to move on to some really deep and dark roses, and probably my deepest and darkest rose is Chopard Love. I wouldn't say this fragrance is an easy one to get on with. I almost decluttered this fragrance when I first tried it. I blind bought this a couple of years ago and instantaneous reaction was, oh, I don't like this. It was too dry, it was too much, it was too rosy, and it took me a few goes before I just completely fell in love with this fragrance. I think the thing that strikes me about this fragrance is the quality of it. There's something about this. I think it's the different types of rose. I have never smelled a fragrance where I can distinctively smell multiple types of rose so distinctively as I can in this fragrance. There's very distinctively a very sparkly feeling rose. There's definitely a Bulgarian rose here. There's a powdery rose here. That it just makes this fragrance super interesting to me. But it is dry, and that's what makes this fragrance difficult for some people to get along with. So there's some patchouli here, and that also adds to that dryness along with some cinnamon. The cinnamon comes off as a little bit dusty and not so spicy, just more sort of a warmth. This fragrance I think gets widely compared with Portrait of a Lady, but it's not as dark as that, and it's not as extreme as that, I guess, is how I'd put it. This to me actually makes me think of the collection that Kilian did that was aimed at the Russian market, and there's one particular fragrance that I've sampled from that line called Kisses Don't Lie, and that one is actually by the same perfumer as this fragrance. This is an Alberto Moria's fragrance. I think if you do try this fragrance, you have to be prepared for something on the drier side of rose. But this fragrance for me is an absolute love. It's just something that I don't reach for when it's not super cold. It's really long lasting, and it also really projects. It's a fabulous fragrance in a beautiful bottle. The bottle is entirely glass, even the lid is glass, which I find astounding these days. So that's Chopard Love. So my next fragrance is another deep dark rose, and this fragrance is just one that I always want to reach for in the cold weather. It only comes out to play in the cold weather, and it's just a special time when this one gets worn. So this one is La Petite Robe Noire Black Perfecto by Guerlain. This is without doubt one of my favourite fragrances in my collection, and it's something that I just love the contrast of this fragrance. There's the sort of light pink, powdery, delicate rose in this, but then there's also just that deep, dark black leather, along with some really delicious licorice, and then a really naughty feeling cherry as well in this fragrance, along with that dark, mysterious feeling musk. This fragrance has just got, 5, 6 of my favourite absolute notes in fragrance ever. And it's just one that I can't ever see myself being without. I love this fragrance so very much, and it's just something I always want to wear with black boots in the wintertime. So it has to be on my tray for December. So that's La Petite Robe Noire Black Perfecto. So my final choice for a deep, dark rose is a rose that I think a lot of people overlook. It's something that I think a lot of people don't recognise as rose, really. But this one is Coco by Chanel. And I think really this fragrance shows just how much my taste in fragrance has evolved over the last 4 or 5 years. Because I think when I first started making videos, there's no way I would have even considered picking this fragrance up and trying it, let alone even buying it. But this is a fragrance that just has a nostalgic vibe to me. It takes me back to another time. It actually makes me think of Christmases gone by. There must have been a relative that I was hugging who wore this one, because it does have a nostalgic feel to it. So this is a deep, dark, spicy, powdery rose with a powdery fruitiness about it as well. But then in the dry down, there's sort of a slight animalic purr to this, and it's got that beautiful muskiness as well. It just leaves such a trail. This is really strong fragrance, and it's something that I think just feels quite businesslike in a way, but also rebellious on the flip side of it. I just really love Coco, and I think it's well worth trying. If you haven't picked this one up before, just go and sniff it, and it might surprise you. It surprised me. So that's Coco by Chanel. So following on from Coco, I'm going to move into some more spicy fragrances, but this is probably a bit of a more approachable spicy fragrance. I think this one just has, dare I say, a sexiness about it. I never really describe fragrances as sexy, but this one just is sexy to me. And I think it just feels a little bit hypnotic. There's something about this that I feel is mesmerising to me. So this one is Givenchy L'Interdit Rouge. And I bought this fragrance for my Christmas party, I think it was last year actually. And I wore it quite a lot last winter, and I've put it away for the summer, and now I'm ready to pick it up again. So that's why it's going on my tray in December. But this one, I really like the spicy opening. So it opens with ginger, and there's also just a heat to this fragrance in the opening. And really it's a tuberose fragrance, but the tuberose is very creamy feeling, and it's got some vanilla and some sandalwood in the dry down. And really in the far dry down, you're just left with a slightly spiced creaminess, really. I think it's just one of the best designer fragrances on the market right now. I just love the L'Interdit line in general, but I think this one just still is my favourite. So that's L'Interdit Rouge. So my next choice is another spicy one, and this fragrance I fell in love with last year. I smelt it on a friend, and she actually gave me a sample from her bottle, and that was it. I just had to have my own bottle. So this one is Kenzo Jungle L'Elephant. You know, this fragrance is just a great example of something that would never fly today. This would never reach the designer market today. This smells more like a niche fragrance today, I think, to me. This fragrance is just incredibly distinctive. It's very spicy, and it just has this kind of playoff between hot spices and cooler spices. So the hotter ones are things like the cloves, like the cumin, also the caraway. And really the cooler aspects of this are the cardamom and the licorice. And it's that kind of playoff in the opening that really adds the interest to this fragrance and stops it from just being too warm, too spicy, too dry. The dry down is more of a tropical kind of fruity feeling vanilla, but it's a very kind of subtle aspect of that, really. You're still left with the spices, but really it just becomes a little bit more sedate. It becomes the fruitiness and the vanilla really do come through, but they don't dominate. It's a really well-balanced fragrance and just so distinctive, and just something that as soon as I smelt it, I had to have it. It just felt like this was something that was missing from my collection, and I love this in the cold weather. It really wakes you up in the morning because it just is so punchy. Not too many sprays needed of this one, and it lasts and lasts. So this is Kenzo Jungle L'Elephant. So continuing on from the spice theme, I'm going to choose another spicy one, and this one I think really just makes me think of Christmas trees and Christmas Day itself. It really is the most Christmassy of all of the fragrances here, and this one's one from Jo Malone. I think for Jo Malone this is a very long-lasting fragrance. This is the fragrance from the whole range of Jo Malone fragrances that I've tried. This is the one that lasts the longest on my skin. So this is a clove-based fragrance, but it also has this kind of boozy, almost deep, syrupy kind of feeling, cooked plum to me as well. It also makes me think of dried red currants at points. It has this kind of dried fruitiness, which I think is meant to be the pomegranate. Some woodiness here as well, and it's kind of got almost a smokiness to it. It really makes me think of eating dried fruits by a fireside at Christmas, and makes me think of Christmas trees, and just the kind of the spiced fruits that you might eat at Christmas. I think I might actually wear this one on Boxing Day, or maybe on Christmas Day itself. It just is very Christmassy and very appropriate, I think, for the season. So that's Pomegranate Noir by Jo Malone. So the final two fragrances are going to be leathers and suedes, and the first one is probably the best suede I've ever tried in fragrance, and this is Bottega Veneta by Bottega Veneta. It's just a really kind of makeup-y suede. It smells like dropped powder makeup in a suede handbag, and it has this sweetness which I think can only be explained by violet, even though violet isn't listed. And I think that's why I really love this fragrance, because of the violet. It just is a very elegant fragrance. It would be great for going out, but it also is something I just really like wearing when I'm at home. It's a really comforting and cozy fragrance as well because of that violet and the sweetness. Really long lasting and really quite a punchy one as well, this, but also very soft and ethereal, and just one of my favourites. Has to be on my tray for December. So that's Bottega Veneta by Bottega Veneta. So the final fragrance is one that I feel like I could layer with a few of these fragrances, and it would just add a different element. It would add a bit of a sweetness, but also with a leatheriness as well. So this one is Fifth Avenue Royale by Elizabeth Arden. And this isn't the longest lasting fragrance in my collection for sure, but it's just one that is very distinctive, and I love the booziness, and I really feel like a December fragrance tray deserves at least one boozy fragrance. So this is a raspberry and probably sort of something like a spiced rum kind of fragrance really to me, but with a slight leatheriness and a resinous feel. And the resins are really what stands out in the dry down and really give this fragrance a lot of body and make it something that I really think layers really well with other fragrances. So I really like layering this one, for example, with LoveFest Burning Cherry from Kayali. I think those two really work really well together and really complement each other. And they really give each other a boost because neither of those two are the longest lasting fragrance in the world, but they just give each other a little bit more oomph really. This one I think would also work with some of the other fragrances in my tray, maybe Pomegranate Noir. This might work quite well with. I'm going to experiment over this month and see how I get on. But yeah, sadly this fragrance is long discontinued, but it's something that's really made me think very differently about Elizabeth Arden fragrances in general, and has made me more open to trying more Elizabeth Arden fragrances. It's made me more interested in Elizabeth Arden. So that's Fifth Avenue Royale by Elizabeth Arden. So that's the final fragrance in December's fragrance tray. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed the video, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know which fragrances you think you'll be wearing during December, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.